Hey everybody, it's Gino Reynolds from The Real Opinion here with the first ever Real Opinion Q&A. I want to welcome you and hopefully we have a lot of fun. I got some great questions. I won't be able to get to them all because there ended up being more than I thought there were going to be. But hey, we've got some great questions and hopefully I can answer them and we have a lot of fun. This Q&A is going to be released a little bit later than I had hoped. My son, as many of you know, went into the hospital the week I planned on taping all of this, and of course, priority one is my kids. So hopefully, I will have this out the week after I planned. I'm sure you all understand that. So anyway, also down here, I plan on having my set built down in the Reynolds basement, and that didn't get done either. So this is a preliminary stage of the Real Opinion set. So we're going to go ahead and do this down here. It's not the format I wanted to do it exactly, but hey, I wanted to get it done as soon as I could. So that way, especially since there's a prize involved for the best question. So anyway, we'll get started here, and here we go. Adam sent in a few questions. Sent in a lot of questions. The first one he wanted to ask was, why are so many studios going the remake route? Now, I've had different opinions on this. The remake route, I used to always say because I can't think of anything original, and honestly, part of it I think still is that. Another reason I think they go the remake route is, new generations are discovering movies all the time. And I think a lot of filmmakers think, well, no kid is going to watch a movie that came out in the 50s, 60s, 70s, whatever it may be, and they decide we're going to make this version for their generation. Now, some honestly I think are very good, and some are adequate, and some just suck. One that I thought was very good, and a lot of people would really disagree with me on this. Was the new Nightmare on Elm Street. I thought the acting was great. I thought they turned Freddy into what Freddy was supposed to be the first time around, because Freddy kind of became a parody of himself after the third film, and he wasn't the scary monster he was supposed to be. And so that one was really good. An adequate remake, I thought, was Total Recall. Was it unnecessary? Most definitely. I mean, you didn't need it because the original, though that had its stupidity, was still a pretty fun film, and the new one I thought was really fun too. So there's plenty of remakes that are okay, and then there's plenty that just stink and shouldn't be attempted. And then now I've heard, I can't remember when I heard this a few months ago. I had heard somewhere that they were considering remaking stuff like Casablanca, and then even continuing Casablanca, but that's another question, another story. I think you shouldn't remake movies, but they're not all bad. So, and it is a good way for new generations to discover movies, because, whenever I was younger, I didn't want to watch old black and white films. I'll watch them now, because I have a greater appreciation for filmmaking. But back then, kids aren't going to want to watch, a remake, or going to want to watch an original. It took me forever to watch Casablanca, and I was glad I did when I did, because I love that movie. But so remakes aren't totally bad, but that's why I think they're going the remake. Maybe half of them are going the remake route because they want newer generations to see films now. Like I said, some shouldn't be remade, like Texas Chainsaw. And granted, the new one really isn't a remake; it's a sequel. But they did remake it, and then they've had many different iterations of that. The remake of Friday the 13th, parts were good, parts weren't. Parts were really bad. New Halloweens, I actually really like the new Halloweens. So, and it seems that horror movies get remade a lot. So anyway, so that's my thoughts on the remake route. He also asked, in my opinion, this is Adam Wright. He asked, in my opinion, what has been the best movie franchise ever made? If you're going by success, I would have to. That's a huge argument because if you look at the numbers of what movies have made. And I'll tell you, the ones that probably made the most money is probably going to be either your Harry Potters, because I mean it was what 7, 8 films, or Star Wars because you got 6. Granted, some of them didn't do as well as others, and of course inflation and all that stuff. My personal favorite though, uh, probably, I mean I love Star Wars though the prequels were atrocious for the most part. I mean I think they had some pluses, but the minuses definitely outweighed the pluses. My personal favorite would probably have to be the Lord of the Rings. I mean, I'm not totally in love with those films. I catch new problems with them, but I think nothing had really captured the epic scale of a new world before then. I mean, granted, like I said, you had Star Wars, and I love my Star Wars. Even Star Trek. Some would argue that those were the most successful, even though half those movies aren't very good, and even Trek fans will tell you that. Um, but like I said, yeah, I think my personal favorite had to be Lord of the Rings. We'll have to see how the Hobbit films go, though, because I mean, though I like the Hobbit, parts of it were rushed, and I'm hoping the other films uh, pick up, the pieces of what didn't work in the Hobbit. And there wasn't a lot that didn't work because it was still a great welcome back. And I like the Hobbit because, or like the Lord of the Rings, and now you can add the Hobbit because they're more consistent. Uh, the differences between episodes 1 through 3 of Star Wars and episodes 4, 5, and 6 are huge, and it's just kind of weird seeing the prequels looking way better than the than the original trilogy. And of course, you have special editions, and I'm not going to get into that because this video will never end. Um, but I think that Lord of the Rings, the differences between The Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings films being that they filmed at the same time, the actors didn't look much different, stuff like that. I think its consistency is why I really like it the best, and I'm a big fan of the fantasy aspect, and I thought Peter Jackson brought an incredible world, though not perfect, brought an incredible world to the big screen and deserves all the credit that he got. And the last question I'll take from Adam is, what is your favorite horror movie killer? Freddy Krueger, by far. Though I like Michael Myers, especially the new version played by Tyler Mane, who just, I mean, I've walked next to Tyler Mane at a con one time, and man is huge, and you don't get the real feel of how big that man is until then. But when I say Freddy Krueger, there's 3 different versions or 4 different versions of Freddy Krueger. I really like 2 of them. I love Robert Englund to death, but I'm not a fan of his scary version where I'm talking parts 1 and 2 and kind of 3 and then New Nightmare. Not saying I didn't like him, but he didn't scare me as much as uh, his scariness hasn't transcended, and maybe that was because, of course, when Part 3 happened, um, the scene I think that changed Robert Englund into from a scary character into a parody of the character was when the girl's watching TV and Freddy kind of pops his head pops out of the top of the TV and arms pop out. He grabs her and slams her face into the screen and says, "Welcome to prime time, bitch." Um, that was the moment I think that changed Freddy into the parody, and I love the parody version. I love the one-liners. I mean, come on, in Freddy's Dead, when he does a video game kill on somebody, I just loved it. Um, so there's that version, and then the Jackie Earl Haley version from the remake. That version was everything that character should have been, and he especially doesn't get enough credit for how good he portrayed that role. Jackie Earl Haley, the things he said, his mannerisms were just incredibly creepy. Because the original concept for Freddy was he was supposed to be a child molester and killer. But back then, whenever the original came out, they couldn't get the whole child molester part past, so he was just a child killer. So they were actually able to bring that version back for the remake, and I think that's why it works so well. And that man is just a very talented actor. Jackie Earle Haley is highly underrated and I think underappreciated. And he killed it, and no pun intended, killed it in that role. We're gonna move on to Leilani Wilson. She says, with all the recent terrible horror movies, what do you think it would actually take to have a successful film that actually is scary and somewhat realistic? Um, Movies I think that are the creepiest, and I don't know if you'd really call them a horror film. They end up, because really horror films, you can go into different. I mean, if they're realistic, they almost try to go into, a lot of them go into the hyper gore, and I know that, and they kind of almost become cartoonish. But a perfect example, and I kind of wish the movie hadn't gone. A lot of people associate horror with supernatural, by the way. So, it's kind of hard to say realistic. But though I can't watch them anymore, and I did them for the classics last year for Halloween. I think it was in October. Um, the Saw movies. I mean, that's something that could actually really happen. There was no supernatural element to that. I mean, there was a lot of ridiculous gore. Um, so something like that. I'm finding that a lot of scary movies that are coming out that are better are the ones that are, they're not gory. They rely more on the jumps. They rely more on the story. Two examples, and I'm not going to do a review, but and plus the review of one of them is coming out soon, and I'll be doing it on TV, or I may have already done it when this video comes out, for Mama. That one, other than the ending, that movie was a fun, creepy, kind of ghost story, and I like that. Sinister was the last real horror movie that I thought was done really well, and yeah, there was a little gore, but it was more. It relied more on the jumps and more on the scares. Excuse me. So, it can be done, and I think they need to get away from this hyper violent torture porn idea. I know there's a crowd for everything. There's a fan base for everything. But when it comes to horror films, ultra violent. Violence is one thing. If you have like a slasher flick, I mean, Texas Chainsaw maybe saying going too far, but if you have a serial killer or something, you can do it right and not make it ultra violent. Um, Another thing she asked was, she says, personally, I'd love to see a female killer icon. I think it's a great idea. I mean, most of your killer icons, at least in the supernatural versions, are males, and if not all. I mean, but you can have a movie like the ones that are more realistic. There's two examples. You've got the killer from Monster, Charlize Theron, though that's based on a true story, I believe.